Hello, this is I Do Damage and welcome back to the channel. In this Wolcen Lords of Mayhem video, I want to talk about crafting. This is not just going to be a general overview video. I want to do a deep dive here and I want to show you what crafting truly is in Wolcen Lords of Mayhem, what it's going to look like, and kind of the loop of the crafting. And then at the very end, I'll go ahead and share my thoughts on these new systems that are coming with the launch on February 13th, 2020. Hopefully I'll get to see you there. Before we go ahead and start this awesome video, I want to remind everyone I do stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Hopefully I will be lucky enough to catch you there sometime. You can bet that when Wolcen Lords of Mayhem comes out, I'll be streaming it, playing with viewers, and having a good time. Let's go ahead and start this video, shall we? Wolcen Lords of Mayhem, if you've played the beta, I'm going to make a few references there to kind of compare the changes that we'll see at launch. The first set of changes is going to be with gems. Gems will no longer have random values of their stat rolls. Gems right now have a certain stat, and then the actual value is randomized once you get the gem. Gems at launch will have a static value and a static stat roll on them. But these will differ based on the type and quality. So if you have a strength type gem, it'll always have strength. The only difference you're ever going to see is if you have a higher quality gem, it'll have a higher value on there. That's what that means. And the other change, this is a big one coming to gems, is as it is right now in Wolcen, you have offensive, defensive, and support stats on a gem. Going into the launch, there's going to be 9 different stats. You're still going to have your support, offensive, and defensive, but within each of these, you're going to have support 1, 2, and 3, defense 1, 2, and 3, and offense 1, 2, and 3. And these are going to be different values and different stats based on that specific one. So each gem is going to have a total of 9 stats on it. So now that you know about gems and that they're going to be static and they're going to have 9 static stats on them, increasing in value based on the rarity, let's go ahead and talk about the next big change going into the Wolcen launch and release. And this is items. Items are going to be changing, not a whole bunch, but the way that the sockets work on them is going to be changing quite a bit. You'll go ahead and see in this image that there are different gem sockets. These are different than what you see now. In game right now, you just see if it's your support, defense, or offense, right? So you can see in this picture we have 2 defensive 1 rolls and then a defensive 2 rolled on this item. And that's going to tie directly into your defense gem of your 6 health regen, and then your health, and then your force shield regeneration rate, right? So the randomness is really going to come down to the itemization and those gem sockets on the item. That's going to be huge. So you're probably wondering right now in the video, I do damage. This is not crafting. This is simply gems and items. And you're right, but you need this background knowledge to go into the next big change. And this is where the true crafting is that I want to deep dive and talk a lot about this one, because I think on the surface level, when I first looked at this, I thought, well, they copied Path of Exile. It's literally what it looks like. And I think that's for the most part pretty true. But with that fact set aside, let's talk about Wolcen and let's focus on the crafting system here. And I'll give you the facts about what it is. So, crafting. When I first thought of crafting, I thought it would be you take a raw item, you bring it in to a blacksmith or something, and you can craft the stats somehow with random materials. And it's going to look a little bit differently. You can still do that in a way, but it's going to be pretty material intensive. But let's just break it down for you. So the very first reagent that you can get, or material that you can get as a drop or reward, there's different avenues of obtaining these. The first one is the Abyssal Tier. This is used to get rid of a stat on a piece of gear to open up so that you can get a new stat in that place. So all the Abyssal Tier does is it deletes a random stat and in the process consumes all the gems currently socketed into that item. And those gems that you have currently socketed is what's going to determine what stat will actually stay on the item. So you need to keep that in mind when using this. And then the higher power of the gems that are socketed currently that are being consumed will also make it so you have a higher chance to keep that stat. So this is a good way to, maybe you have a stat that you really don't want on an item and you just want it gone. This is a good way to do that. And then you can use the Arabin tier, which is another reagent. And what this reagent then does is gives a new random effect. All socketed gems on the item are, again, consumed, and those gems, the type and rarity, will determine what stat is then added. So let's say you're playing a strength build, and you want a strength roll on this item. You have all the other stats, but if it just had that one strength roll, it would just be perfect. You could then do that. You could do the process we're talking about right now. Use that Arabin tier. Make sure you have 3 max, as high power gem as you can get of all strength in the item. Use this reagent. It'll consume those strength and then more than likely give you that strength stat that you need on that item, completing that piece of gear. Again, this is just to make it more likely. You're not guaranteed 100% to get that stat, so you're still going to have that RNG element to crafting, and it consumes all the gems in the sockets on the item. So there's 2 more reagents I want to talk about. The next one I want to talk about is the entropy orb, and this one will reroll all of the effects on the item and consume all the gems currently socketed into the item. So let's say you want strength guaranteed to be one of the rolls. Make sure you have all strength gems socketed, then use this item. One of the rerolls will more than likely be a strength roll, but the rest of them will be random. So this is kind of an interesting item, just kind of a way to reroll and kind of reshuffle those affixes, maybe if you didn't get exactly what you wanted. This one seems to be more of one of the more RNG type of reagents. So that's going to be it for Entropy Orb. The very last one I want to talk about, this is Ohm's Echo. This will take one effect away and add a new one. Again, this consumes all gems, and those gems determine what power and type will then be added to the item. So to the strength example, let's say you have an intelligence roll and you really don't want that one on there. You'd rather have the strength. Make sure you're full socketed on strength gems again. You're kind of seeing a trend here. And then you'll use that. Hopefully it'll get rid of the intelligence roll and add on strength. If you have, let's say you have 5 affixes on an item and there's just one of them is intelligence, you have a 1 in 5 chance of replacing that intelligence. But maybe it's a base item that's really good and has 1 roll of intelligence and it's something you want to craft upon. This would be perfect for that situation. You could then replace that intelligence with your strength. Again, it's all RNG, and that's pretty much the big chunk of crafting and how it's going to look on Wolcen Lords of Mayhem. When it comes to reagents, there's one more item that I would like to talk about, and this is called Genesis Stones. These Genesis Stones are special gems, and they're meant to be rare, and they give you stats that in a way break the rules of things that wouldn't normally happen on items. These Genesis Stones seem pretty powerful. They can add on a stat to make you get more ailment stacks, give you more pierce on your abilities, which could be huge. I mean, that could replace a passive node on your Gate of Fates. I mean, that's huge. I almost compare these Genesis Stones to legendary powers. Thinking back to Diablo 3's Kanai Cube, it kind of reminded me a little bit about that when I read about these. So now that you know about all of the different reagents when it comes to crafting, also keep in mind that if you want to craft a legendary item, you're going to have to actually find a legendary version of these. And these also do not work on unique items. So that's pretty much everything when it comes to the crafting. So now that you know everything about the changes coming to gems, items, the whole crafting system, and you know everything there is to know about all the different reagents and how it's all going to work, let's go ahead and talk about my thoughts on all of this. Again, this last part is going to be my opinions. You're more than welcome to agree and or disagree. Let me know down in the comments, and I'm really curious to see what everyone has to say about this crafting system. But let's go ahead and talk. This is what I have to say. I think that the randomness with, first of all, finding the materials, and then the materials actually doing what you want them to do and getting that roll that you really want is a good thing. I think that that's going to keep players hopefully playing and hunting for that best item and getting that lucky roll on that craft. And I really want that in Wolcen. And that kind of makes me really wonder if there's going to be enough maps, tile sets, monster variety to keep people actually playing the game. Because there's only going to be 3 acts in the game, and I don't know, I'm hopeful, but I'm still very cautious, and I know I say that in every video, but I mean it. But I want to keep this conversation related to crafting. That's for a whole different topic. Let's keep going on about crafting, shall we? The fact that you can't use these reagents on unique items kind of worries me, because uniques have already been an item that I'll get a purple, and occasionally it's exciting to see that purple beam, but then you look at the item and it usually comes with a lot of positive, really cool effects on it, but then there's 9 times out of 10 a negative effect tied to it as well, which just feels bad in my opinion. For example, I got the zap stick, I think it was a lightning staff that I did more lightning damage, higher chance to zap, but all the lightning damage I dealt, I also did to myself. And I don't know, that to me just didn't feel right. I want a unique to feel powerful and special, not something that I need to kind of trade off one thing for another. I get it, it's a cool idea. I don't know, legendaries are better than uniques in my opinion, and I think that that's how they want it to be. And, this is just my opinion, but I think that the uniques do serve the purpose that they want them to, and that is to make certain builds work. For example, the shield that allows you to cast holy skills as a warrior. That's a really cool thing. You can heal yourself, and there's other things like that as well. But anyway, that's enough about uniques. I really wish that they didn't have that negative effect there, but it's just part of it. So other than not being able to use them on uniques, I do think that using these reagents, knowing when to use them, how to use them, and kind of the cycle of crafting is going to be a really good learning curve for this game. And I think that's going to add a lot of depth and value to the crafting system to figure out when and how to use these exact materials. I also like the idea of hoarding all these reagents while you're leveling up to max level for the end game gear and saving them for those base items to plus up and craft up. I really like that idea, and it makes the item hunt that much more fun. And killing monsters, the fact that you have these chances to find these reagents and legendary reagents is really cool. This is the last thing I want to say about crafting, and this is probably my #1 concern. At the very beginning of the video, I said that this system really reminds me of Path of Exile. And that's not a bad thing, and it's not necessarily a great thing. I do wish they were more creative with the system, but that's not my main concern. My main concern here is the economy, and I'm very concerned that we're going to see gold value diminished due to these reagents taking over and becoming the real currency, like we see in Path of Exile. I've been kind of joking around and saying, forget Po.trade, we need a Wolcen.trade now, and that's more than likely going to be a thing. And me personally, I don't like that. I really do not like that economy. I think gold should be the driving funds behind the economy, not these crafting materials. But that's just my thoughts. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. Do you agree, disagree? Either way, I'm excited for the release on February 13th. Make sure you follow me on Twitch. I'll see you guys there. Make sure you check out all the other Wolcen coverage here on the channel. Don't forget to subscribe so you can catch the new videos every Monday and Friday, and sometimes some bonus videos. Please feel free to check out all my social media links down below. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.